When it comes to creating your retelling, you have to make sure you're using the right strategy for you, because if you don't, there's a very good chance that your book will never be completed and never be published out in the world. So today we're going to be breaking down how you can be plotting and planning your retelling and working with a strategy that works best for you, not based on what anybody in this industry tells you, but what works best for you, because you're going to get a lot of advice from a lot of different places, and you're going to feel a lot of different ways about how you can and should be doing this that may not actually be in your best interest. So this is our third episode inside of our Retellings Masterclass. If you have not watched the first two episodes, go back and watch those. Those are the most important things that we can be teaching you on how you are doing your retellings to make sure you're writing it effectively and not getting sued for copyright infringement while still having big dramatic twists on stories everybody thought they knew but don't actually know. So if you've got questions at any point during today's conversation, drop them down below, and we're going to be giving you a little homework assignment to make sure you're doing this along the way. So if you watched the first two episodes, you've already been through the process of picking what your story and your twist is going to be and fleshing out your main characters. Now we're going to be talking about actually doing the heavy lifting of writing your story. And there are a couple of different ways that you can be creating your story. And this comes down to writing strategies. Now, again, this is going to be specific to you and how you are going to function best in the writing world. If you're writing something and it's taking you more than a couple of months to write a story, that's probably the wrong strategy for you. Most people should not be taking more than a few months to write an entire full-length novel. And if you are, there are ways that you can be changing how you're doing this to do it better for you, even while working full-time jobs, raising a family, and all of these things. So you want to make sure if it's not an effective writing strategy for you, you are changing and tweaking and testing things until you find one that works really well for you. So let's break this down. There's plotting and there's pantsing and there's planting when it comes to writing. Plotting is when you know every single step of your story. You have planned it out in a bullet point form from start to middle to end. You know exactly what's going to be happening, and you know every stepping stone along the way. When you plot your story, you're writing down those bullet point lists of notes in advance. This means you will know exactly what you're writing and where you're writing to. So when you start writing, there will be no questions, there will be no hesitations, there will be no writer's block, because you already know exactly where you're going and what you're doing. And you can tweak it along the way. If you see a different path or if you need to sidestep a little bit, you can change it, but you got that structure and you know those anchor points that you're writing to, which saves a lot of time, effort, and plot holes along the way. Pantsing is the exact opposite. Pantsing is figuring it out as you go. You know nothing about this story, you're making it up as you go. And some people need the creative freedom to make things up as they go, but usually this slows people down a little bit because they don't have those anchor points to write toward. It also means the majority of your work is going to be done at the end of your writing. You're going to figure out your story as you go, but you have to do a lot of heavy lifting to then edit it, remove any plot holes or errors, and really make sure your structure is complete inside of your story and strongly put together. So plotting, your work is done before you write the story, and then you just have to write the story. Pantsing means the work is going to be done after the story, fixing all the things that you've put together to make something really cohesive. Now, planting, which is what I do, is right in the middle. Planting is where you know the beginning, the middle, the end, and a bunch of the stepping stones in between, but not everything. This way, you have anchor points you're writing to. You know you have a strong ending, and you know you're going to have some strong things in the middle, but you have the freedom to figure out how to get there as you go. So pantsing means you know several of those major bullet points, but not the sub points in between. So you've got the freedom to be creative and to do all these really interesting things as you're writing, and you can kind of work your way around to it, but you also have anchor points to write to, which makes your writing stronger. It means you are going to have some work to do while you're writing and some work to do after the fact. So it depends on what's going to work best for you. Now, I highly recommend, if you are new to writing, that you are plotting your stories. I would suggest that most people should at least be plotting their first 3 or 4 novels before they freelance and they go off course and they try pantsing. But it comes down to what works best for you. For most people, plotting is going to help them to eliminate writer's block and struggle and stress, eliminate a lot of the plot holes and errors, and prevent them from having to do a ton of restructuring after the fact. For 90% of you, I would recommend plotting your first 3 or 4 books until you understand who you are as a writer, how you can be writing and structuring what you're doing, and creating strategies and systems inside of your writing for yourself. For the other 10%, do what you need to do to try it. But if it takes you more than a few months to write a novel, there's a very decent chance you made a choice that did not work to your benefit, and you should pivot. You should try something new. If you are struggling to write your story at any point for more than just a little bit of time, it means you need to try something different for yourself. Do not be afraid to backtrack. Don't hesitate in trying something new. If it's not working, it means it's not working. And you need to be willing to be flexible and to shift and to try something that maybe you feel like is not the professional way of doing it, but it's going to end up working better for you. Do not stop changing how you're doing things, trying new things, and learning from other people's strategies until you find something that works really well. Let me give myself a little shout out here. I started by writing differently than I write now. And over my course of 5 years as a professionally published author and over 2 dozen books, the number 774 and 87 best-selling book out of every book in existence, #1 in all of my categories, I have learned systems and structures that have allowed me to increase my writing speed and the effectiveness of my writing. Now I have gone from taking a few months to write a book to being able to write a full-length novel in 9.5 days and turn it into my editor on day 10. That means from start to finish, I have started a book and finished writing the book and editing the book, turned it into my editor on day 10 with only a handful of typos and no plot issues. You can learn to get better. Now, you shouldn't learn to get as good as me if that's not going to be something that you're able to do. I have a very specific type of personality that allows me to do that, but most people don't. Your structure here and your guide point here should be to get better and to get more effective at it. Now, I talk a lot about how to get better and stronger and faster at your writing. I'm going to give you a little hint on this right now, but please watch the other videos that explain it a little bit more. As you're writing, you want to push yourself to write stronger, faster, and better, but not in a significant way that's going to overtax you. If you are going to sit down and you're going to write for a period of time every day, and remember, consistency is key when it comes to writing. The more consistent you are, the more your brain and your body learn to do the work, which helps you avoid things like writer's block or dawdling or not getting your work done effectively. And again, we talk about that in other episodes as well. You want to make sure that you time yourself. So let's just say you write for 20 minutes every day. In 20 minutes, how many words are you able to write? Chart this for about a week. Find what your average is going to be. And now I want you to mandate that you write 100 words more than that average for the next week. It's going to be a little hard. You're going to have to push yourself, but you're pushing yourself just by little increments. Now, once that starts to feel comfortable, much like training for a marathon, you're going to start small and do little runs, and then you're going to push yourself a little bit further every day. It's going to start to feel easy as you're writing that extra 100 words. When it starts to feel easy, now challenge yourself by adding another 100 words. You're bumping it up by small increments in the same time frame, forcing yourself to get better, stronger, faster at it. So you can train yourself to do better with this, and you can figure out what strategies work best for you. So you want to make sure that you are following over on the Show Me How You Write series here on the YouTube channel, where I break down exactly how I write and a bunch of my author friends break down how they write, so you can pull little pieces that sound good to you and cobble together your own strategy so that you know exactly what is going to work best for you, and you have the ability to then test things out and try things out. So I want you to figure out what writing style works best for you. I recommend, if you're not sure, if you don't have something that you say, that's me, I want you to try plotting first. Plotting typically helps people out better because you're learning more about your story. The more you know about your story before you start, the easier it is to write it, the easier it is to understand your characters, the easier it is to connect with what you're going to be writing, and that's going to make you faster, more strategic, and more effective with what you are doing inside of your story. And then your goal is to stay consistent with this. You want to make sure that you are creating a strategy within your writing. So we talked about that a little bit a minute ago. By choosing to write for a specific amount of time every single day or a specific number of days per week, you're going to create a habit. So I recommend that you do write every single day at the same time for the same amount of time. While this may not work into your lifestyle, creating consistency is what is going to work. So let's say you're a super busy person and you just can't prioritize writing every single day. I want you to prioritize writing 3 times a week. Or maybe you have Saturdays and you get to write once a week, and it's going to take you longer to get your story done, but you have the ability to, on Saturdays, write for an hour or write for 2 hours or whatever it happens to be. Create that consistency. But you're also creating consistency in your setting. So you should be writing at the same place at the same time. We're training your body to learn how to do this. Think about athletes. Think about an ice skater. They have to repeat the same moves over and over and over again. And at first, it's going to be clumsy and it's going to feel weird and it's not going to be great. But as they continue to do this, it gets easier. It becomes muscle memory for them. So when they step onto that ice, they immediately know what they're going to be doing. Or as they bend their bodies a certain way, their body immediately knows how they're going to be jumping in the air and doing those spins. This is the same thing with authors. If you sit at the same desk at the same time every day, your body understands when you sit in that location, it's writing time, and it gets your brain working faster, stronger, and better without having to get into the process of it. So for me, I write in the same way all the time. And you can do this too because then your body understands it. It becomes muscle memory. So if you are writing on your couch with your computer on your lap at 7 p.m. every single night for 30 minutes, your body knows the second you go to that couch and you put that computer on your lap and open it up, you are in writing mode and you're going to be able to do this better and easier for you. So create consistency. This is the time of day you're writing. This is the length of time you're writing. This is the location you're writing in. This is how often you're going to be writing. Create habits. By creating habits and consistency in what you are doing, you are going to be more effective than somebody who just does it on a whim. You want to make sure you know exactly what you're doing and training yourself to do it because it makes it better and easier for you. Remember, your writing is a business. If you want to be published and make money from your work, you must treat it like a business. So just because you are a busy human does not mean you have an excuse for not doing your work. If you don't do your work, you don't get paid. If you don't go to your job, your boss is not going to pay you. You're probably going to get fired. If you are not doing your writing, you are not going to have a completed story. You will not be able to be published. You will not be able to make money. So you do not have to treat this like a business if it's just a hobby. And if it's just a hobby, most of this stuff doesn't matter because you're just doing it for fun. But if you want truly to get into this industry, you must treat it like a business. And that means you must set aside specific amounts of time during your day or your week in order to work on this. And the more time you give it, the better it's going to be for you. The easier it's going to be, the faster it's going to be, the more money you're going to make, the more deals you're going to get. All of those things come into play as you are doing this. And because you're creating a strategy for yourself, you are eliminating a lot of things. You're eliminating a lot of stress. You're eliminating a lot of work. You're eliminating a lot of writer's block. And this is one thing that comes up a lot as I talk about these things and I have these retellings masterclasses. People ask how to deal with writer's block. Well, here's the thing. Writer's block is the sign of something that's going to happen a lot more when you're younger in this industry. Before you have strategies, before you create that consistency in those habits, you're going to come up with writer's block a lot. So when you're younger in this industry, this is going to happen more. And the more mature you become in this industry, the less this is going to happen because you create strategy, because you create consistency, because you teach yourself how to do this in a better, stronger, faster way. You're going to be dealing with less writer's block. And even when you are struggling in the future as a very mature and well-published author, you're going to be able to get around these things a lot faster. So when it comes to writer's block, there's a couple different ways that we can be handling this. The first is to plot your book, babies. Because if you plot your book, you know every single thing that happens along the way. You do all the heavy lifting before. You don't have questions. You know where you're going. You know the exact next step because you've already plotted that out. So if you're struggling with writer's block, the first thing you should be doing is plotting your book, figuring out those next steps instead of just trying to figure out the next step as you go and then the next step as you go. Figure them all out. Know those anchor points and write to them. Plotting your book eliminates a lot, or I would dare to say all of writer's block. Now, if you're just stuck on a particular scene, you can step away from it for a few minutes. If you just need a second, go to the fridge, get a grape. Go to the sink, get a drink. I want you to walk outside and get your mail and come back in. See if that helps. If that's not going to help, then try something else. I want you to step away from your story for a minute. I want you to write another story, and not a full story, but like a short story. I typically recommend writing a bonus scene from a different character's perspectives, or taking a recent scene that you created. It even could be the one that you just wrote, and you're going to take it and write it from a different character's perspective. So the exact same lines, but from the love interest's point of view, or from the best friend's point of view, somebody else who was in that room seeing it. This allows you to stay creative and in the mindset, but step away from the exact scene that you're working on. Now, if you need to really get away from the story, just try writing something different, a little short story, or take notes, or do something else creative to stay in the right mindset. If you need a little bit more, you can actually step away a little bit further, but again, stay in the creative mindset. Go on a photo walk. Go make pottery at a local class. Go out and watch a musical, or go do something that's creative and allows you to be creative, but then come back to continue to write your story. Of course, if something is just not working for you, maybe it's the wrong story at the wrong time. Shelve it and come back to it in a few months and see if it's going to be better for you. There's a lot of different ways that you can deal with writer's block, but it really comes down to knowing your story really well and making sure it's the right story for the right time. Now, if you've got questions on writer's block, go ahead and drop those down below. I have lots of videos on how to deal with writer's block, so you can go watch more of those, but that was kind of the basic overview on that, because the stronger you become as a writer, the less you're going to have to deal with this. The more strategy you create in what you write and how you write, the easier it's going to become. And the ability to step away and step back into it is also going to help you on those tiny little things where you kind of hit a little bit of a wall and you just need a second to breathe and relax and make sure you know exactly what you're going to be doing next, so you can create that plan and story for your writing. Okay, so as you're creating your plan for your story and for your writing, you are going to need to figure out what works best for you. Again, it does not matter what I do or what any other author does. What works for us, and it doesn't mean it's going to work for you. So before you start anything else, you need to decide what you're going to do. Again, I recommend plotting your story. I really do. For new writers, for the vast majority of you, this is going to be the best, most helpful thing that you can be creating. This is going to make sure that you write much stronger and you don't have worry or fear over what comes next. You have a strategy, you have a plan, and it eliminates that never ending, never getting to the final part of your story worry, because you know exactly where you're going. So you're going to create that plan for how you're going to be writing your story. You are going to create your plan for how you're going to do your writing. When are you writing? How often are you writing? How long are you writing? Are you going to be working actively toward getting stronger with your writing or getting faster with your writing? Figure out all these things that you need to be doing, because you want to make sure that you are stepping into this in a way that's going to be much easier for you. So once you've decided what you want to try, be aware that it can change. This does not have to be something you adhere to, but once you pick a route, stick with it for a while. Don't decide something today and then change it tomorrow. So stick with it for a while, test it out, see how it works. If it works for you, fabulous. If it doesn't, it's time to tweak and pivot. Go watch the Show Me How You Write series here on the YouTube channel, because this is actually going to help you to figure out what works best for you. By hearing from a bunch of different authors and taking pieces of what they do and cobbling it together for yourself, it could result in much better work for you. Once you are ready, I want you to do your homework. We are going to be plotting your story. So start to finish, I want you to plot your story. For the purpose of this masterclass, you're plotting your stories, baby. And if you need to change that later or you need to throw it out later, that's fine. Do your thing. But for your homework, you are plotting your story so that you know exactly what you are going to be writing. Now, in our next episode, we're going to be breaking down next steps in publishing. So we're going to be talking about editing, what to do with your story next, how to query your story, how to get your story published. We're going to be talking traditional versus indie versus hybrid publishing. We're going to be breaking down everything you need to know about getting your retelling out in the world. If you got questions or comments, drop them down below. Hit the subscribe and notification bell. And if you have a series you want to see here on the YouTube channel about writing, let me know. I want to make sure we're getting your questions answered. As a multi-time best-selling author who educates in this space and is educated in this space long before she was published 5 years ago, I want to make sure that we're answering all your questions to help you level up and get your book out in the world. So I will see you in the next episode, and drop any of those questions below.